I gotta write to him. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. I'm gonna hit the go
It's so
live button.
different. Everything's so different. I'm trying to remember when I went through.
Okay. So we should be live. I think we're live. I don't know. I know there's a delay, so I don't know what's live, to be honest. Did you stop hearing me again?
I don't know why my headphones do this.
What perfect timing.
They decide to stop working temporarily.
Okay, well, I'm gonna welcome everyone. Well, you got that sorted, so welcome everybody. Okay, yeah, there is a big delay. Okay, that's great. That's good to know. But okay, that's fine. We're chatting about Warbreaker today, so it will probably be spoil. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say we're gonna have spoilers in this, and I'm gonna keep watching to see if Ben figures out his Bluetooth headphones. Okay. But I'm gonna grab my book while Ben gets things sorted. Of course, it's gonna happen as soon as we go live. Alright, but we're talking about Warbreaker. So, Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson is currently a standalone. He's writing a sequel. But, like, I don't know how connected it's gonna be. I'm curious about that. And wow. Anyway, and I'm just gonna clear the air right now immediately and say that I didn't actually finish reading it this time, but I've also read it like 3 other times, so I can talk about it even though I didn't read it this month because I started reading Way of Kings instead. Choices were made. I decided to read Way of Kings, and literally everything else I was reading disappeared. It's fine. Yeah. Yes. Oh god, Brid just said the beautiful leather bound, and it's so gorgeous. Like, this purple is just, and there's so much extra detail. Ugh. I wonder what the writing is supposed to be. There's like a script around the edge. I should really spend more time looking at this.
I never really looked at it very much when
Yeah, and it's like got such pretty pictures in it. Like, I know some people are like, you can't read these, they're just pretty, but like, when it's that pretty, why can't I read it? So, anyway, just before we get started, Ben, any general thoughts about Warbreaker? And then I'll have like some more serious questions to get into.
So let's see, Warbreaker, because specifically Brandon Sanderson, I think I read the Mistborn trilogy first, and I can't remember if it was Warbreaker or Elantris I read first, and then I used to get those confused in my head all the time, because they're standalone, both of them, and I'm just...
There's also similar vibes with the coming back from the dead thing, and...
Yeah, I gotta read Elantris again, because they both have such unique concepts of magic in them. And this is something Brandon Sanderson I love in all of the books he does, is he creates magic systems, and you can see some similarities between them, how he likes to do things, I feel, personally. But and everyone's unique, and in Warbreaker, it's like, it's such a... He connects it to the real world in a way. Like, I mean, in some ways we're like, this could be possible. Because, I mean...
Okay, that's what you mean. Okay.
Yeah, like, it's the concept of, like, interesting, because specifically with Warbreaker, what I like the most is it's like having this breath, soul, whatever you want to compare it to. It's like, it's what allows you to, like, feel somebody watching you. It connects you to the rest of the world. I'm like, that's something in the real world, like, if you can feel when somebody's watching you, and it makes you think, maybe it's possible that I have this special power, and if I could gain more people's power, so to speak, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Kind of concept.
Well, and you mentioned like that a lot of his magic systems are similar, and that like I think that's the whole Cosmere thing, was that like, and I am pretending like I know anything about the Cosmere, but
oh god, I don't know anything.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of the point is that the magic systems are all very similar but different. So like Warbreaker has color, and Mistborn has metals, and then I don't know. I think I remember seeing something like that, but
I don't know. I've read all of the Stormlight Archive. I know you're just starting, but definitely with the most recent book he released, it starts to show those connections. Slight spoiler there, but
yeah, I've heard.
And I'm finally starting to get a connection, and I was happy to reread Warbreaker after reading. Oh my gosh, what was the last book that just came out?
Rhythm of War.
Stormlight. Rhythm of War, because it reminded me a little bit, and now I got to read Rhythm of. I need to either take notes or go back and forth to try to names and make connections, and then I guess go back to Mistborn, because I guess Mistborn Trilogy 2 actually is more for important.
Really?
Potentially.
Interesting. So I can't talk about the large Cosmere implications just because I have no idea. But it was fascinating reading Way of Kings and Warbreaker at the same time, because you could see how much Sanderson has grown as a writer. Like, absolutely, like, this wild difference in, like, not that, like, Warbreaker is bad, and I love it. Like, it's what I always recommend to everybody to, like, get started with Sanderson, because it's a standalone, and I think it's pretty good. But reading it now for the first time in, like, 4 years, it's not as good as I remember it. And especially reading it at the same time I'm reading Way of Kings, where a lot of his, like, clunkier things that he does in Warbreaker are gone. I mean, there's problems with Way of Kings. I think his character work there is iffy, but it's just interesting to see that, like, difference and how much he's changed. I mean, it's been, when did Warbreaker come? Well, the 10-year anniversary was last year, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So 2009, that's 10, 12 years later. Wow. Way of Kings came out, I don't know when, but
It's also see the difference if you're reading the Stormlight is Way of Kings versus Rhythm of War, just how much it grows. Because him as a writer, as well as, the series builds on itself. Also, when I do a reread of Warbreaker, I do the audiobook, so
yeah, I wanted to do the audiobook, and didn't get to it, because the library didn't have it, and I think it might be one of the stupid Audible exclusive ones, which is, I'm sorry, I started reading chat. But yeah, so I couldn't do the audiobook. If I could have done the audiobook, I would have finished it in time. But instead, I didn't. Instead, I picked up something else on audiobook, and I'm really disappointed in it. But that's not here nor there.
If you ever need an audiobook, I do have an Audible account that I can just let you get on to listen to stuff.
Yeah, I might need
if
to
you really
just
want to.
steal that. Okay.
But no, very good. I love.
Yeah, I've heard there's a graphic audio. So the one that you watched, was it like the graphic audio or just regular audiobook?
So the audiobooks, I have not tested any of those yet. I have seen they have that for some of Brandon Sanderson's books, but like for Warbreaker and some of those, it's not a single audiobook. It's a 3-parter that you have to download 3 different audiobooks.
So it's like taking up 3 different download token thingies.
If I remember correctly from it, and I've debated it. And what's interesting about it is, this is going off topic, but when I listen to the Dune audiobooks, is okay, Wheel of Time, just because a lot of people are familiar with that. You have 2 narrators. When I downloaded Dune, there's like 8 narrators, which makes me think it's somewhere between normal audiobooks and what these graphic audiobooks are like, would be my guess, where you have more people to voice things. They included music to help emphasize certain things a little bit in between chapters. So I can't say if that's exactly what the new graphic audio stuff for those are, but I'm curious. It's just, for me, who has already read the book, listened to the book, I don't see the value of also getting them.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'd be curious about it, because I do like full cast productions. I think they're pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, whether it's worth it or not is Another thing. All right. So here's a question from this. I just found a Reddit post that's like book club questions for Warbreaker. Um, so who is your favorite character and why?
In Warbreaker, can I remember the names of anybody?
If you can describe them, I might be able to find you the names.
Obviously, the best character is Nightblood, but
Does he count? I suppose he counts.
I don't know. He is a sentient being. Um,
But is he really a character? He's kind of pretty one-track mind. I don't know.
it's a toss-up between oh my gosh, I keep thinking of Stormlight character names. It's Princess in the Castle or
The one.
guy who carries Nightblood.
Okay, so the one that married the
Yeah,
God King. So that's Ciri, and I agree. I think
Yeah.
Ciri's pretty great. Or
she's just
Vlad. What is his name?
I don't know. He doesn't have a name. His name changes. He has like 6 of them.
Yeah. No, not Vasher.
Vasher, yes. They're my 2 favorite. Obviously, while reading it, other guy, Vasher's enemy.
The one he kills at the beginning.
No, at the end.
Oh,
The
then
guy
I don't.
who's like the main antagonist. The mercenary dude.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can't.
Tom Pho is the big guy, and I can't remember.
Yeah, and then his buddy. I don't remember, but yeah, keep talking. I'll
But-
look.
The mercenaries dynamic, there's the word. The dynamic of the mercenaries I always love, and in the first read definitely it was much more enjoyable than in a reread, because I'm like, if I remember right, they're gonna, and
Yeah.
this is full spoilers for Warbreaker,
Yes.
they're gonna betray her.
Oh yeah.
And I'm
No,
like, when
that's
does this happen? When does this happen? And like, I'm with you, I hadn't read it in a long time, so I'm like, I think this happens and this happens, but the whole, you know what really sucks about being a mercenary?
It's such a good through line. It's so funny.
Exactly.
Yeah, his name is Denth. But
Okay.
So what's surprising me this time, I'm hating Vivenna, and I didn't remember disliking her.
Oh,
But-
Vivenna's so.
And it's not even like I'm disliking her. I'm hating her this time. She's so judgy and uptight and and I get that it's a culture thing.
Oh yeah.
But I can't stand it. I can't. Ciri's great. She's cute. I mean, it's hard not to what's his name? Light Song. It's hard not to
Light
like
Song.
him.
It's what I
but-
like about Warbreaker
Yeah.
is so many of the characters are such I don't know, they're opposites of what they should be. That's not quite, there's a term for what I'm thinking of, but like Light Song is, he's supposed to be a god, but he breaks all the norms.
He's a
You
god
have-
that's an atheist.
You have Ciri, who is forced, she's supposed to be a nobody, forced into this position, and she's so not what she's expected to be, but it leads to being a good thing. You have Vivenna.
It's so funny. Let me find one of the pictures. Give me a second. In this, I mean, there's a million things I love about this book, but one of them is the chapters start with these gorgeous illustrations. And there's this one. What, can you see it? There?
Yeah, I can kind of see it.
These
What about
gorgeous
it?
illustrations. And the thing that's so wild to me about it is there's this gorgeous, colorful, pale-haired, beautiful woman, and then this plain, dark, austere woman. And based on their characterizations, you would expect them to be the opposite. Vivenna is the perfect, oh, that you didn't know, whatever, is the perfect daughter, the one that's the perfect princess, and you would expect her, based on typical media tropes, to be the beautiful one. And then there's Ciri, who's the rebellious daughter, and you expect her to be the more plain one. So I think it's neat that that's kind of switched. I think it's a fun thing to play with.
And like I said, is their characters at the beginning and the roles they end up in, because Vivenna is the perfect princess and she becomes the rebellious one.
Mhm.
You want to know who I want to know more about? Is their other sister, the one who joined the convent or whatever.
Right,
I'm
she's so
curious
cool
about
at the
her.
beginning, and then you just kind of don't get anything else from her. They also have a brother
Right.
that's literally mentioned once. Leslie's watching with the
because
sound off, bless her.
oh my gosh, more people need to read this book. Maybe, maybe we can do. If I should, we should have done a spoiler-free section at the beginning.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Whatever.
But,
Yeah, well, but favorite character, to get back to that question. And if anybody in the chat has actually read this book and isn't just here to be great, wonderful humans supporting us, let us know your favorite Warbreaker character in the chat. But I love, well, Susebron has some appealing things, the God King himself, but Light Song's head priest, at this point, from what I'm remembering, is probably my favorite character. Fred's making fun of me. Are you okay? Did you lose sound again?
yes, I did. I don't know what causes it. I thought maybe if you hadn't talked for a while, my headphones said, "Oh, hey, there's no sound, so we're gonna just."
But what I was saying was, I like, probably my favorite character is Light Song's head priest.
Oh my god, that just reminds me of the whole concept of Light Song. Again, a thing that my mind is like, I know where this is going, sort of, but I don't remember exactly how it gets there. But yeah, his priest is awesome, like, no doubt about it.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. Like you mentioned with the mercenaries, I know they eventually get to this point where they betray her. And I remember there's like that weird thing about murdering animals, but I don't remember how they get there. And I remember Light Song and his priest are brothers,
For
but I don't remember how they get there.
brothers or brothers? Law?
Brother-in-law, I
brothers?
think it
yeah,
was.
brothers. No, it's brothers, because the girl he sees is his niece. I think Light Song is just a
Okay,
single dude.
clearly I don't remember this book nearly as much as I thought I did, and probably should have actually read it. But it's fine.
Look, I literally listened to it this month, and I'm trying.
So I think there's some really great characters that are just not necessarily what you would expect, and I think it's fun.
And I Ridima, was that Ridima who said
Yeah.
she thinks what the word I'm looking for is subversion? Sure. But
Yeah, it's
subverts,
very-
yeah, stereotypes. Okay. Let's
Ridima
see,
also
you're
said her
supposed to
favorite is
tell me
Light
what-
Song, which is like a delight. What was I supposed to tell you?
You were supposed to be the one who finds words I'm trying to think of, not chat. That's what they're here for, I guess. But yeah, no, Light Song is it's hard to dislike most of the characters because the concept of the betrayals in this, I think it's supposed to make you kind of like there are no bad guys.
Well, there's
Other
no.
than
Yeah, I mean,
The only bad guys at the beginning are actually not bad guys. it so twists you
Well, the
because
whole-
like the people you
point of the book is that it's not about this like personal conflict. It's about a international. Oh, excuse me. It's about an international conflict. Like that's the entire point. So
yeah, and it comes out that at the end of the book, it's a third party that was actually manipulating everybody the whole time.
Which
that you didn't know anything
feels
about.
realistic. Like, how often do we have wars that really were started by somebody that's not even involved in the war? And yeah, okay, let's skirt around the politics of that situation.
Oh, I know. Warbreaker, I could definitely see like so much a longer book with more of the stuff, but I enjoy a lot of the political stuff. But at the same time, it's a good length. It really is.
Yeah, well, and I like that it's a standalone. I really don't know what he's doing with book 2 of Warbreaker, because I like it, and I don't know. I don't normally like political plots in fantasy. Like that's part of why I'm struggling with Warbreaker is the big political chunks.
With Way of Kings.
Yeah, with Way of Kings, sorry. But this one like does politics in a fun way that I'm like fine with.
It's talking about this. I forget how much is packed into the book. Really, like there is a lot for the size of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to like we read Wheel of Time, you're getting into Way of Kings. Look at Way of Kings versus Warbreaker and how much. I mean, the only thing about Warbreaker is realistically the world is very small. At least where the story takes place is such a small world compared to like a Way of Kings or Wheel of Time. Um, trying to think of other big things.
Sorry, I'm looking for more questions, and I just read one about how did you feel about Bluefinger's betrayal, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that.
That's what I said about the third party kind of concept.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
see.
but yeah, no, it's when you really look at it, is you're talking about a book that, for the most part, takes place in one city, and for the most part takes place in one quadrant of a city versus like your books like Way of Kings. So the world building, although there is a large amount of it in a historical sense, but the actual scope of how big the world is so small. Like, I mean, we don't know anything about the outlying world that they live in.
That's true. We only know about really these two small countries. Well, relatively.
We
Yeah.
hear about three countries, sort of. We have the main empire that, is supposedly controls everything on this landmass, who supposedly they came from another continent beforehand to establish on here. So it hints at this being a full world of some sort, but we know so little. We know about the empire, where Ciri came from, and even then it's just like a principality that is like
It's
one
a
large
kingship
town.
in exile.
But it's such just, again, that's like a small community. I mean, I think they have a couple of outlying towns, but for the most part they have their main town, which is still like barely considered a city in size, that's over the mountains like a week away, or I forget how far it is. And then you hear, yeah, about other country that is also a subject country that is to the south, north, whichever direction it is. But it's
Yeah, it's very small.
such
I
a
mean,
small portion
there even
of this
a-
overall world.
I think there's only a city map in here. I don't even think we have a world map. Okay, the next question I have, and it's not even one I read, but I came up with it because sometimes I can be creative. How do you feel about Daedalin's decision at the beginning to send Ciri in place of Vivenna?
I was. It's so strange. I mean, I'm not a parent. I'm not, and I can't really relate to being a father in any way, shape, or form. But the concept is, if you look at it from purely a not emotional point of view, I can see the logic behind it. Talking about Aja's, I feel like I relate to a white Aja, so of course I'm very logical about things.
The thing
And
is,
loopholes.
I don't think he was coming from it through a logical perspective, or not entirely. Like, his whole argument for why Ciri was the better choice than Vivenna is that whichever daughter he sends is either going to die or be a bargaining chip, and he knows he cares more about Vivenna than Ciri, so Vivenna would be a more dangerous hostage. Like, what a shitty,
Well, yeah.
pardon my language, what a terrible thing for a father to think.
When I say it's the logical, is just because some people say logical doesn't mean emotion doesn't exist. Emotion is another variable you have to take into account. So his own personal emotions is something you take into a logical decision, because some of the logic there is also Vivenna's more valuable for the kingdom. He just didn't take it the scope forward that you are invalidating Vivenna by what your decision is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a logical choice to make with the information that he has, but the fact that he can make that decision is weirdly upsetting to me. I don't know. Look me in the Never mind, our parents have favorites. I was going to say look me in the eye and tell me our parents could send one of us somewhere, but they could.
I mean, I'm a very big a proponent of, I try very hard to be like, because talking about that, because of course arranged marriages and stuff like that is very for Americans at least, and a lot of Western culture, I'll say arranged marriages are like unheard of. I mean, we know about them, but it's like they don't happen nowadays. Um, so it's like to have this contract. So it's not like it was. It's very political, and it's like at the end of the day, it's like, hey, it's a loophole. Get rid of the daughter. I don't care about really. It sounds
But
so
that's
horrible.
the
but I'm
problem,
like,
the fact that he doesn't care about her. Like, I don't know. I just, that, I mean, I'm not a mom, whatever. I can't possibly understand what he's going through. But, like, conceptually, the way that, like, he can just coldly be like, yeah, I don't care about this daughter as much, so if she was sent to, if she became a hostage, I'd be fine. Like, I just,
yeah,
it's so cold. And the fact that he doesn't consider things like the fact that that's going to really upset Siri because, wow, she's being told she should be put in this position she's not ready for. Or the way it's going to affect Vivenna, who's like, wow, now I don't have a job. And, like, it's just
yeah.
so, to me, it was just so wild. I can't. My blood was boiling reading it again. I was just like, I didn't remember this being that cold and angry and like.
Oh yeah, and it's definitely one of those things that it felt like it was purely plot based. It didn't have enough reasoning behind it. Like I say, it sounds logical, but at the same time, it seems not quite logical enough to be like. It almost seems like it was only made to advance the plot because, you know, obviously we see that because he made this decision, everything's going to work out. Obviously, if Vivenna was sent, everything.
Well, right. After the fact, we know that Vivenna would not have worked in that position. But, like, the choice at the time, and especially the reasons he makes the choice, it's, like, it's just so upsetting.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that I think the pressure for him to send a daughter that war might break out was also perpetrated by Bluefingers. I don't think that there was actually that much.
Well, they didn't expect them. Literally, they were preparing for war. When Ciri shows up, they were like, we didn't think you were coming. We thought they weren't going to send it, you know. So it's interesting. All right, quick, Ben. Top of your head. You, me, Nate, Fan. Who would mom and dad send into a dangerous arranged marriage? You're putting too much thought into
What
this.
kind of what's the point of the arranged marriage? This is just like
to prevent war.
No, I went silent again.
They might need to be charged or something.
No.
To prevent war, Ben.
What?
We're hoping to prevent war.
You, unfortunately. No. This is the thing. Because
No, I'm curious. Go on.
I was going to, you know, say one of my brothers, but that would just cause the war, I feel.
They'd get sent back. Tag.
Like,
Return to sender.
Because it's not a thing about favorites, because it's just like if we're in a political situation like that, it's like, oh crap, I want to get rid of the one I don't like, but no, that's gonna just cause more problems. Or I mean, also because you're the only girl, so you know you can't send me in an arranged marriage because it doesn't work that way.
Who says?
Oh, I'm set to inherit the kingdom, obviously.
Oh, okay. Wait, why are you inheriting?
Because the eldest is disowned by royal standards, I would imagine.
Okay. And so Nate's the one that becomes the monk? Nate's the one we dedicate to the church?
Or I would have been dedicated to the church depending on how we grew up. So it's like, it would be between you and Nate, and obviously you being, it also depends on, do they need a woman or a man? But
I really like this family dynamic we've set up for our royal family.
of course.
Okay, let me find another question. I don't like that one. Let's see. Neither you or I are really good at actors and stuff, because one of these is if it were made in a movie, who would you get to play certain characters? But I don't think you or I have any particular.
Honestly, the more I think about it, with all of these, most of the Brandon Sanderson stuff, the more like things with in-depth magic systems, I'm like, I'd just rather have animated.
Well, and Warbreaker in particular lends itself to animation because of the color thing. Like, I think that would only look good animated.
You would definitely, because I don't, getting into the pictures we've seen of or any medieval fantasy type thing is obviously when you try to make it more realistic is even though it talks about color, everything seems a little muted because if you really think about it, dyes weren't that big of a thing. But the whole, especially Warbreaker, the concept that the whole economy is built on them having these dyes, so you have to have almost like black and white TV versus color TV is the difference.
Well, I wouldn't. Oh well, for the like difference between their hometown and like the city, yeah. It's gonna be like Dorothy and Oz, but I think like I just think that like concept would work better on animation because you could have slightly muted colors as like the natural like color tone palette of the screen and people would like accept it as normal, whereas if you do it with like film it would seem a little off, and then you can have those pools of brighter colors around people with breaths and things like that.
The special effects needed to really capture the concept of the breaths and how it affects an area around somebody, and to do it well, I think you could do it in film, and it would actually, if they pulled it off, would be super impressive looking. But it'd be much easier in an animated setting because it'd be like, all right, this section of this scene, tweak the contrast, put it up 2 notches. Like,
but it's more than just tweaking the contrast.
I know, but
I don't know. I think it would be something to. It would be fascinating to see. I know. Isn't Sanderson writing a Mistborn screenplay?
I don't know. I don't keep track of this stuff.
Well, you should. No. I feel like he's writing a screenplay for something.
Person. I'm a Wheel of Time person.
That just happens to encompass Sanderson some of the time.
I'm still. I part of me wants to, but part of me is like afraid to actually try to understand the Cosmere.
Yeah, I don't know. I've like looked some of it, but like obviously I can't go that deep because you know, Stormlight is the big Cosmere, bring it all together kind of thing.
I just want a book that explains to me.
Well, I do
in
have...
a story.
Oh shoot! I don't know where anything is on my shelves right now. Oh, they're up there.
I
do have the Arcanum Unbounded, and I think that explains some stuff.
I don't know,
but I haven't read that yet. Okay. Yeah, so I was just, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like if there were any character that a certain actor comes to mind for anybody.
Who do we know that looks like a hobo but is really awesome? That's an actor.
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson should be Vasher.
He'd fit the role really well though. Like, actually though. Yeah, I don't have any like particular vibes for anybody in particular. I feel like Scarlett Johansson, well, she's too old, but she could pull off a pretty good. And that's the other thing. Siri's freaking 16. She's 16. I didn't remember that.
So,
it just gross. Anyway.
I don't know. I'm to the point where when I read fantasy, if you're 13 or older, you're marriageable. So
right, you just kind of like.
It doesn't bother me anymore.
You just kind of do the Game of Thrones, just age them up about 5 years, and then it's fine.
No, I'm so like it's fantasy. It's typically based off medieval times.
But medieval times weren't actually that much like that. Like, it's this weird misconception we have about medieval times based on like only the upper class. There's like a whole thing to get into that, but like the whole idea of marrying at 13 wasn't actually that common.
I know it's an extreme, but I mean, you said 16. I mean,
right.
I say 13 just because it's fantasy and it just makes it easier, but 16 is not crazy to get married at. It's only crazy in today's standards.
Yeah, well,
And
and I'm reading it today.
I I know, but it's just like whenever I see those comments, I'm like, okay, I'm sick of seeing those comments because I'm like, yes, we get it. In today's society, it's not right to be married at that age. I've heard it. I get it. I understand. Move on.
Yeah, but that's how I like
Fine.
reading things. I like sitting there and making that contrast between like what they do and what's appropriate and modern standards. I don't know. It's how I read. Anyway, I was gonna say if she was younger, Scarlett Johansson could be a pretty good Siri, but she's way too old now. Yeah, I don't know.
Um, Christian Bell as Viviana.
Kristen Bell. You know what? I could see it. Be an
She's the one who played that lady in that one movie about vampires, right?
Yeah, she was Bella in Twilight, but she's actually
Okay.
a much better actress than Twilight gave her.
Excuse me, everything I have seen her in, and I've seen her in other things, is what was it? In is Snow White and the Huntsman they used her in? She was supposed to be Snow White, and I'm like, she just doesn't. She looks constipated when she tries to smile.
No,
But,
she was really good. This is really off topic, but I don't care. Um, she was. What did I see her in that she was really good in? That weird one with Jesse Eisenberg where he's like a sleeper agent. Anyway,
oh yeah, I haven't seen that.
American something
just-
or other. She was really good in that. But anyway, yeah, I can't think of. I'm trying to think of the God King. I'm trying to think of who should play Susebron, and my brain is just coming up empty.
Um, I don't know. He's so unique of a character. Like, how do you cast something like that?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, casting stuff, whatever. La 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 la. Which which ability of the awakening was the most interesting to you, and why?
Oh, now I see. I gotta bring up the Kindle version so I can go to the back of the book and see what all the different awakening levels are.
I just want
I mean-
excuses to use this book a bit more.
Obviously, I'd want top, but that's the God King.
So at 50, you get aura recognition, which is the ability to see what other people are at. At
Yeah.
second level with 200, you get perfect pitch. Third gives you perfect color recognition. Fourth gives you perfect life sense. Fifth gives you agelessness. Sixth gives you instinctive awakening. I don't know what that means. Seventh gives invested breath recognition. Eighth gives command breaking. Ninth gives greater awakening and audible command. 10th gives color distortion, perfect invocation, and question mark, question mark, question mark?
Yeah. Obviously, I'd want to get to at least the fifth heightening because immortality. But
Well, it's not immortality, it's agelessness. There's a difference.
okay. No, agelessness is immortality. Immortality is the difference between immortality and being invincible.
I suppose.
I don't know. I
don't
always
know.
equate agelessness to immortality.
I
That's
feel
the
like
most
I'd be pretty
interesting to
happy
me.
with just the third to fourth, honestly. I think the idea of being able to see. No, honestly, in a world that's not designed for it, being able to see colors perfectly might be really stressful.
It would be interesting. I mean, first of all, if you're in a world where you can have this, so you're already changing the world you're in. But to be able to the perfect color distinction, especially how it's described in the book, becomes such a unique mechanic. Like,
No, it's definitely interesting, but like imagine you're sitting in your bedroom and suddenly you just recognize that the paint on your walls is way more uneven than you realized. Like that sounds so stressful to me.
true, but again, in the real world, how can you? It's like, well, I guess if the paint wasn't mixed perfectly, so it'd be like it would have strata to it, so to speak, when it was
Or
on
even
the
if
wall.
it was like painted in a way that like currently looks even, but then if it's slightly thicker in one place, it's gonna be a different color to you.
Yeah, I guess do make a point there, but
Like, conceptually it sounds cool, but the more I think about it, the less I like it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm like looking
true.
at my walls now and I'm suddenly like horrified by the possibility.
It would be but see, this is what I like about the whole concept of it is I would personally like to have enough breaths to reach the fifth heightening. I would just store all of them to stay only above, like, the second heightening for most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see
Because
that.
that's the one concept you get into later in the books. It's so cool. It's like, hey, wait, why does that person look normal? And then all of a sudden, oh, that's because it's so easy to just be like, put all my breaths into my pants I'm wearing, so I
But
look like a drab.
but it's not even like unusual. Like, it's not even like it takes a while to be introduced. Like, because early on, Vivenna gets like gifted forced breaths upon her, and like she's like talking about selling them, and you can only sell all of them. You can't sell some of them. And the guy is like, Denth is like, why don't you just awaken stuff to like store it? And she's like, she's of course her, so she's horrified by the idea. But like, yeah, you could do that. I don't know. I think just having enough breath so that you could like awaken things, so like sitting around that like 200, 300, like third awakening level would be cool.
But again, see, because I would want to be able to awaken things without having to worry, and that seems higher, closer to like the fifth height. Well, fourth heightening. What's the amount you need for?
Or
Because
okay, so it goes. Bring this chart back up. God, these
it's
purple tones.
50,
50,
200.
200, 600, 1,000, 2,000, 3,500, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000.
Yeah, so around the 2000 mark, because from different things, and we don't get an exact science about it, but it'd be like, I would like to be able to, it's like throwing out 100 breaths doesn't bother me.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know if we get more exact numbers on like what awakenings cost, other than
Well,
just less
from basic,
humanoid means more.
exactly, and it seems like less humanoid, like those sort, like non, like a rope. We're talking like 50 breaths for a rope.
Right, but I mean,
So,
I don't know. I feel like I wouldn't want to awaken a lot of things. I'd keep like a doll by my like at on me at all times, so I could like get it to fetch things for me when I was feeling lazy and didn't want to move. Like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm just want it like casual.
but I want to be able to casually use it for whatever. Obviously, it would be awesome to get to the point of, what is it, the eighth, when you can do it by voice,
Mm-hmm.
I think, or something like that. Obviously, that would be awesome, but at that point, I think it'd be too. The aura would be too extreme, and
You wouldn't want to
yeah,
deal with the that. Well, that's the
you
other
would
thing.
stand
Like,
out.
yeah, I mean, if you're, it's one of those things where like in Vivenna thinks about it while she's traveling through the city, Tel Turan or whatever it is. Um, that like in that city it would be kind of fine, but I wouldn't want to walk down the streets of like New York standing out like that.
But that's why I say, hitting like the fifth heightening, and this Vasher does it so easily. It'd be like, I would wear a cloak, and it'd be like, all right, I would technically have, but my cloak would have the protect me concept on it at all times. So I'd have another, like, however many 100 breaths or whatever, constantly just sitting on my back, so to speak. Because when you have a lot of breaths, I want to be safe.
Right. Okay. Question. Next question. Where did it go? Can you hear me? All right. How deep do we want to get? There's one question here that's like pretty deep, but
I mean,
all right. Yeah, sure. It's what would it take for you to give up your life in order to save one person? So if you're in Light Song's position, what would it take for you to say yes to a
oh,
petitioner?
ah, see, that's such an interesting concept. First of all, you got to think about it. Is the gods died once already and they came back. So with that knowledge, my life is literally, I could have whatever I want. I don't know if it would be a specific one person as much of it's a I'm bored, time to die.
Which is kind
To
of
be
what he
honest,
implies. Is it's just you
well,
get to a point where you're.
um, but one life,
That's the
that's
thing.
such a
It's such a
difficult thing. Like,
small.
how do you
It's
choose
such a
to?
huge impact, but such a small impact, right? Like it's one life that, I mean, that can literally, I mean, you're changing somebody's life. That's huge, but it feels like so little when you compare it to the grand scheme of things.
And that's what I do enjoy about the book, and I don't know how much you remember since you didn't actually reread it to the end. Is you come to find out that it's like the gods, as mortal people, they died and they got a glimpse of the other side before coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And in that glimpse, they saw part of what's to come. So technically, every god has a purpose that comes back. So you would, I think, instinctually know that this is the person I'm supposed to save. Like,
Right,
you have a purpose.
right. But just talking like theoretically without like that kind of knowledge, what do you think
I
would
would,
be
it would be literally, it's like I would wake up one day and I'd be like, first person who walks in, bam, here you go.
no matter
I'm done
what?
with life. Well, not exactly. Like, I mean, obviously, it'd be most likely a child would be the one I'd lean towards more, or primary caretaker if they have like a family of
Mm-hmm.
children would be involved in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's to heal a child, or it's like, hey, I'm dying, but I have four children at home. I don't
Yeah.
have a wife, sort of situation.
Yeah, I would want it to be somebody who is doing good. So it would have to be somebody, not necessarily a primary caretaker, but like somebody that like in some way is doing good on their own, right? Like, and obviously that's such a hard thing to quantify, but like somebody that the world would be worse without. And that's so
Oh, I know.
impossible to define, but I think that's what I would want it to be. But that's
That's why I
like,
say that's why I say children would be involved, because the concept that, children are innocent still and they have the most potential to do good.
mm-hmm,
Um, I might pick accidentally the one who's going to become a dictator later in life. But
right. Yeah, but I definitely see the appeal of a child because they have like the most life left. So they're losing the most in theory. God, this is dark. I don't like it. And
or knowing me, I'd just be like, okay, my priests, this is what I need you to do. I need you to come up with a formula that calculates the worth of every human life that walks in here.
you can't do that. You can't quantify the value of human life.
I would be a god at that point, so yes, I can. And I'd be like, I will approve the equation, and once you do, everybody who walks in here, if anybody scores above a 500 on how much they're worth, all right.
You can't. I just whatever. I don't think it's
Just
possible.
saying, you could.
You could
It's
try.
okay. Well, I mean, you think about it. We talk about like
I
how
mean, you
you said,
could, I guess, but it wouldn't be like objective. It would be quantified by your standards, which I guess is the same as anything else we're saying. So,
because similar to how we said a kid has the most potential life left, that would give them in one category more worth. But because they're currently not providing any worth, so they wouldn't have, like, if you categorize different kinds of worth, it's like
remind me
energy.
to
You
never
have
let you become a
potential.
dictator.
You have like the potential energy or the potential worth of a child versus the kinetic energy or the
Losing it. Alright, losing it.
look. That's only if I'm at God level like these people, and at that point, you have to do something to make life more interesting.
Let's see. What do you think about the practice of buying and selling breath? Is it immoral or is it just commerce?
Commerce. I mean, um, we learn from a couple of people like being a drab's weird, but we definitely get broken into the preconception that it's like it makes you lesser. It's implied that it changes your personality, but
Well, I think it would change your personality just in the sense that like you losing that human sense that sensing that like everybody has to know when people are near or when, you know, losing that kind of connection would
Yeah.
change a person.
Yeah. But it's so interesting because I like it as an alternative to because a lot of the people who sell their breaths, it's the concept that hey, you're so down on your luck, you're on going on the streets that it's like you need money now. It's better than becoming a prostitute
I
or
just
selling your.
mean, yeah, I mean,
It's
well, depending on the person, people place different
but
values on different things.
true, but that's what I'm kind of equating it to is selling your breath is like that final desperation to similar to selling your own body. So
I mean,
I
yeah,
personally, I personally think it's less bad than selling my body,
for your personal value
especially
analysis of
because,
those things.
especially because it's something you can eventually get breath back, as well as it's not like there's any lifelong negative effects from losing your breath if you get one back that we
True.
can see. It's
Oh,
not like if I sell my body, I'm going to be traumatized from that potentially for the rest of my life. I sold my breath and I
potentially.
was.
I mean,
I
yeah, no,
sold
I
my.
get what you're saying. It's a much lower risk, seemingly.
Yeah. So
I'm just
from an
thinking right
economic.
now of the scene, the Fontaine scene in Les Mis. I'm like, that's what I'm picturing as you're talking. I'm like, yeah, I'd rather not go through that. Um,
I also like to think of it as building an economy on buying people's breaths that are about to die as a form of life
that's
insurance
the
for their
thing that's
offspring.
like so well, and like the gods specifically take it's usually from children, and I'm like, why? Like, I don't know. I feel like a family over like imagine it, generations of a family passing their breaths down. Like, you could become like easily after a few generations, like if there's one person in your family that is going to be the one that receives the breath, and then when they die they designate a person to receive the breaths, and then like, I don't understand why that's not a thing in this world.
I, that's what I'm saying. It makes such a potential like it's just another form of energy, so to speak, that you can. It's such yeah, you can just pass it down like that. I would make it my life goal of just collecting breaths in some way.
See, I
I
don't
want to.
know. And I think there's like an implication that there's like an addictive nature to it, which I could totally see, just because
Well,
like
yeah,
things like, and so I mean maybe that's why, because like the spy master that Vivenna goes to see, like he's been spending like wasting his money buying breaths because he's like addicted to them. So I
it's
could see
power.
like the potential danger there, but
It, it's the addiction of power. It's nothing like
well,
unique or different,
yeah, it's
but
literally,
it's
but it well, it's the same way that like some drugs change brain chemistry, which gets into weird things. But like just the fact that like one of the main addicting qualities to most drugs is they make you feel a certain way or they make you experience a certain thing in a certain way. So like
true.
I could see where you would get addicted to being able to see colors in a certain way or hear sound in a certain way. But the thing is, like, it's not like you're losing those breaths unless you're spending them. I just knocked something down. Um,
Yes, yes, you did.
uh,
But my
unless
thing
you're
is
spending them. So if you don't spend them, I don't see why you would need to get more. Um, and yeah, so the idea of like a family just over generations passing it down seems reasonable.
amazing. Well, because how I look at it is, it's a form of power. Like I talk like energy, anything like that, but it's an easily accessible power at the low levels, but can exponentially become ridiculous at the higher levels. Like with
Right.
getting 50 breaths is not that hard to reach the first heightening.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much a breath is worth, but
a lot.
Especially like depends. I mean, we're talking like slumlords in like the
Well,
bad part of town. Hey, you're starving. You lost your job. Before you go begging on the streets, you go to try to sell your breath. You're desperate. How much is it going to cost you? How much would you be sell your breath for? How low would you be willing to go before?
yeah, if you're that desperate. But also, and this is something maybe I'm misremembering, but I think they explain the system for like donating your breath to the gods at one point. And like, don't they reward those families? Like, if you donate a breath.
Ridiculous amount of money, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, but also they seem to be particular about whose breaths they take, so.
See, now, this is what I don't like about the god system in that. Is because we were just talking about how passing breaths down. So you could technically, and I think the gods might be a balancing system, because where we could save up breaths as normal humans, and so there's more breaths than there could be actual humans alive on Earth, which seems weird, or on the planet, whatever it is. But then the gods consume breaths to help rebalance it, so there aren't more breaths than people in a weird way.
Well, true, but like we also don't know if that's like a limiting thing. Like, is it like energy where energy cannot be created or destroyed, only changed in form? Is that what it is? Or is it like just, is it like human souls, which may or may not be finite, you know?
Exactly. So I mean, who knows? It's because what that's what I don't understand about the gods, because it's like you are consuming a soul a week, or sorry, a breath a week in order to stay alive.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, what happens to that breath you consume? Second of all, where do the breaths you initially start with, or the giant breath that brings you back to life, come from?
Well, and that's, I guess that could very quick. If we go with the idea that breath is more like energy, then it's very, I mean, where do all the breaths of people that die that don't pass those breaths on go? So if we believe that everybody that dies that doesn't pass their breath on, that breath is just lost, that breath could then be repurposed to resurrect a person. And that's kind of what I assume it is. But that's, again, if we're going with the idea that they're energy and not souls, which is kind of the main crux of the conflict there in the book.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel, is it's similar to that, where it's like there's, a pool, similar to how you said our soul's finite, is there only so many, and that's what I think breaths are. It's like you got this pool of ethereal power, and everybody who's born is given a single breath worth, whatever that is in the grand scheme of how much is out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe it is finite. And I think without the gods, and if people kept hoarding breaths, you would see some form of negative effect on the world.
I mean, theoretically, if that's what it is, if it's finite, I guess you would eventually see people being born drab. But I just feel like, given that there's the ability for gods to be resurrected, right? Like, the returned are a thing. That means there must be such a large amount of unused breaths that...
Well, I mean, if we look at the fantasy world versus, like, modern society, okay, we're talking about what's the population like in this world versus today's world, where we have 7 billion people. Is that the correct now? No.
I think we're at like 7.5 now, yeah.
But, so, and this is a fun postulation? I don't know. I don't know if that's what I want, but maybe, yeah, I'll bring it to Wheel of Time. How Wheel of Time is supposedly our world. It's fun to look at whenever you have magic systems. It's like, maybe we used to have this, and eventually we'll come to our world because of what I just said, where breaths get hoarded so much that eventually people are start born as drabs, and then the drabs being born outpopulate the people with breaths, and for some reason, rather than them repopulating the pool of breaths, because what happens to like all the things you put breaths into that you never take them back?
Same. I mean, I assume it's the same thing that. Well, no, because like. Well, it's interesting. I'm thinking about it, like in terms of like if a person dies, like the idea that that energy is just expelled into the universe to be used at some other point makes sense. But if it's in an object, and as far as we
It's
know,
stuck.
yeah, maybe there's some sort of degrading system that like just half life to breaths in objects. Maybe I don't know.
Because that's the thing is it's implied, or it comes across that it's like if I were to put all these breaths into something and then die, they're stuck in
They're there,
back.
yeah, because nobody else
Except
can get it out.
think, because that's part of the thing that when you hit a certain height,
That's what I was gonna say.
take them out.
Think one of the heightenings is that you can like override other people's commands.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I'm with you. I think it's always fascinating to
Try to theorize how could this world become ours.
yeah, that's always fun. All right, so we're at an hour now, so I guess we can wrap up here. Thank you to everybody that came and listened, whether for the whole thing or for just a little bit, and for all of those that can't hear me right now because you haven't read Warbreaker and you're just incredibly sweet and kind. Thank you to everyone that was here today.
Yeah, and this will stay up on our YouTube channel, so if people read Warbreaker and want to come hear our thoughts, or if you weren't able to catch this live and you're listening to it, watching it now,
I don't know how
recording,
useful it is to
thank
tell
you
them
for
this
that.
at the end, Ben. Just, but yeah,
Well,
so.
look, if you've gotten to this point in the recording that you are watching now, thank you also.
All right, I'm gonna cut this off because I have D&D in like an hour and I should eat something before then. And I heard your puppy barking, so I'm sure she needs a stern fatherly hand.
No, I need to eat food.
That too, you have work, so. All right, so I'm gonna let this run for like another minute because there's a big delay, but thank you everyone. Check the comments for links to our social media and things, and yeah. I don't know how to end this because this isn't our regular Wheel of Time content.
Thank you. And good night.
Good night. Bye. Now I awkwardly wait till I see my hand wave so I can end the stream. Alright. Your stream will stop immediately.